Hello, everyone. We're going to wait 30 seconds here, wait for some more people to jump in. We had a lot of people accept the invite and register for the webinar today, and we'll get started momentarily. All right, we got 25 people here. So good afternoon, everyone. And Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September webinar entitled Basics of Financial Planning. We're thrilled to have everyone here to discuss this essential topic that affects all of our lives, and that's managing our finances and the basics of financial planning. As I said before, we've had a lot of signups, so we're excited for all of you to be here, and this will be recorded so we can send this out after the fact. My name is Andrew McGill, and I'm a wealth advisor here at 12 Points. I've been in the industry for over 6 years now, and I'm passionate about helping people and families to be more proactive about their personal finances rather than be reactive when it comes to finances, and taking what can be a daunting task for so many people and turn it into something that feels more excitement. So taking stress and turn it into excitement. And I'm excited today, hopefully, to tear down some of those walls when it comes to financial planning. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff here, my colleague, just to let him introduce himself.
Yes, good morning, everyone, or I guess good afternoon at this point. Thanks for attending. We're looking forward to taking you through the financial planning process, at least the basics. I've been in the industry for close to 20 years. My big incentive for being involved in the financial services industry in general is doing financial planning. I've helped an awful lot of people, and it's hugely satisfying, and I get a great deal of enjoyment of helping my clients retire, hopefully earlier and hopefully with more money. With that, I'll leave it to Andrew to talk a bit about what the agenda kind of looks like.
Perfect. And then one thing I'll say for those of you who have to leave early, I just want to make it clear that at 12 Points, we think that everyone on this call deserves to be able to have someone who can go along with them on their financial journey. And a lot of times when people think of financial planning, they think of, oh, I need to have tons of money to do that. If you're just starting your journey, we can connect you with the right people. We have the resources to do that, and we think you deserve that. So feel free to reach out to us after this. And with that, let's dive in here. So instead of putting an agenda up here, like a formal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we thought we would put a Jenga board here. And what we're going to be talking about today are goals, budget, emergency fund, retirement savings, insurance, estate planning, and healthcare. And the reason why we use a Jenga board is really what we've found is that it's not necessarily, a lot of times when people think about financial planning, they just look at things in a vacuum. Maybe it's just investments, maybe it's just saving, maybe it's just estate planning, whatever it may be. But we find that just like in the game of Jenga, where you pull out one piece, everything comes toppling over, all of this is very important. And what we want to do is, I'm not trying to create any fear here, but what we want to do is just helping people to avoid financial collapse. And we want to make sure that all these pieces on the Jenga tower, I should say, are in there sturdy. And what we're going to talk through today is we're going to talk through these areas and help you with some things to think about and give you some takeaways. So as you can see at the top of the Jenga tower, you can see goals there. And Jeff is going to speak to goals and their role in financial planning.
Thanks, Andrew. So why are goals important? Well, most of us can live our careers being goal-oriented, setting a goal, setting an agenda to achieve it, getting the resources in place, and then reaching a goal. Financial planning is really no different. the building block elements that Andrew was just referring to on the prior slide. We use an approach that's goal driven. There's lots of ways to do financial planning, but we find having your goals as your first and foremost driver, and goals that are consistent with your values is the most effective way to get you to achieve some financial security and financial freedom. So these are just some examples. So one of the most important pieces typically is retirement planning, figuring out when you want to retire. What are going to be your anticipated expenses? Now these, you start out with an idea of what it looks like. These things are not carved in stone. A plan is a living document. It changes as you need it to change, as your circumstances change, as your family changes. So these are some of the items we typically see. Funding and education, so college education, most folks want to help their kids in some way, or get their grandparents to contribute. Your healthcare expense is going to be one of the bigger expenses you're going to have. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's important to be cognizant of those because it can really interrupt your results and your plans. Do you want to extend support to your family and friends and community? Other things so travel. That's very important to most people, not everybody. Again, maybe you have some weddings, maybe you want to leave some money in a bequest. There are also other earmarked expenditures, anything that you can think of that you might want to do, pre-retirement and in retirement. And Andrew's going to talk to us a bit about budgeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. So thank you for talking about the goals, and goals ties nicely into the budget. So why do we have a budget? A budget is, we put it in place to align income and expenses and look at that over a period of time. This is not something where we put all of our assets down or our liabilities. This is your day-to-day, where is my money going? And I will tell you right now, typically when we're working with clients, this is one of the most stressful things. This is one of the more daunting things to actually, it's almost like looking in the mirror of where is my money going? And what we found is that having awareness of this and just getting used to having a budget and reviewing this over and over is critical in relieving that stress that may come with it. So one of the things that it does is it gives you that control, I said. It helps you achieve your financial goals so you can make sure that your money is going towards those goals, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then avoid debt and overspending. So what are the steps in creating a budget? So what we did actually for you, for everyone who's on this call, is if you look under handouts, there is an Excel that is called cash flow worksheet. And we did the first step for you. We have a budget here that you can use, you can save down, and you can use that for your own self, for your family. And that first thing is to determine what your net income is. So we look up here in the green area, the light green, where you would just put in your pre-tax income. Okay, so what is your company paying you? Down below, maybe there's other part-time jobs that you have, maybe there's other income that's coming in, so you would put that in under other. And what this Excel is going to do is it's going to total up all of that for you. And then we're not going to go all the way down to the bottom, but you'll see that in a bit. Then taxes. So we all know that what comes into our pocket is not exactly what our company tells us is our salary. So there are things that come out. We got to pay Uncle Sam. So on your paycheck, take a look at your pay stub, and you can start figuring out what are the things that are coming out and what are the taxes that I'm paying. Okay, you can input that in here. If you keep going down, we start going into monthly expenses, and these two numbers will, if you put in the monthly amount, you're going to see an annual amount, and you can just go through this whole list, and we've covered a number of different topics. Whatever it may be, your cell phone, charitable donations. Jeff, would you mind scrolling down just a little bit? Perfect. If it's childcare, gifts, entertainment, healthcare, laundry, dry cleaning, you name it. It's all going to be here. And then you can also put it at the bottom, you can put in other. All of that's going to be totaled up at the very bottom here. We then go into insurance costs, all these different topics. I'm not going to drain through this line by line, but the bottom line is what we've done for you, Jeff, if you could just go to the very bottom here of the whole Excel, we've categorized these different topics. So we have income, taxes, expenses, and then you have recurring savings. So if you fill out the top section, this is all going to populate at the bottom. And the big key in this is not only understanding from a high level, knowing what your income, what's coming into you, what's leaving, and then what's being left over for you to save or to put to different places. But more importantly, what are you saving right now on a recurring basis? What we see many times is people will save whatever's left over. And a lot of times at the end of the month, people don't feel like that's a whole lot. They feel like they just spend whatever comes in. If you can create the behavior of doing the saving up front, it's going to pay dividends for you in the long run. So in summary, the benefits of having a budget here is going to be financial security, goal achievement, making sure you accomplish the goals, making sure every month you're having money go towards that goals, giving every dollar a job, okay? Having that control, making, as I said before, not being reactive, being proactive and making that decision. So everyone can take that. If they don't see that documents, I'm just gonna look here at the questions that we have, just make sure someone isn't saying we can't see that. Okay, get a copy of the Excel sheet. I don't see it in the invitation. Okay, so we have put it in the handout section. Thank you for asking that. And let me know if you still don't see it in the handout section. And with that, we're just gonna go over to, we're gonna talk about emergency fund. And for many people, when they first start in their career, or perhaps they've just made a big purchase in their life and they've emptied out all of their savings, or whatever it may be, building up an emergency fund is critical. And the rule of what we like to recommend to folks is having 3 months for a 2-income household of savings. So 3 months of your income saved, or 6 months for a single income household. Okay, and having that set aside in a savings account, high yield savings account, nothing that's in the market that has a chance to go up and down. You want to make sure that thing is there, that money is there when you have, as some people call, a rainy day. So some people may call this a rainy day. There's all different terms, but for the sake of this webinar, we're calling it an emergency fund. And why you want to have this. So if you don't have this account, what ends up happening is you may be trying to save up for, maybe it's for college, maybe it's saving up for a car, whatever it may be. If something pops up and maybe you need a new roof on your house, there goes your money from your college savings, or there goes the money saving for that car that you wanted to buy. This allows a nice safety net so you don't have to be taking away from your savings for the long term. Prevents high interest debt. A lot of times if people don't have funds set aside, again, I'll use that analogy with the roof. That money may have to go on a credit card. Again, we are not against credit card, but we are not for adding up unneeded debt that you have on your balance sheet. Having peace of mind. A lot of times we hear clients say just being able to sleep at night knowing that that money's there. And then how? So we talked before about having that budget, making sure that a budget aligns with your goals. So setting up on a monthly basis, money to go from whether it's your employer to your savings account, or it's from your checking account to your savings account, create that automated process. Start small and keep building up over time. And like with anything, it's kind of like you have that safety net and try to test yourself, see how aggressive that you can get with something like this. And if it doesn't work that next month, pull it back if you need to. but you're gonna be very pleased with yourself if you set up this automated process. And so we just talked about before about how important the emergency fund is, so you're not taking away from your long-term savings. We recommend that not only are you putting money into an emergency account if you don't have an emergency fund, but in conjunction with that, you're saving for the long term. And Jeff is going to be talking about that next in our next slide.
So the headline tells the whole story. Start yesterday. The power of compounding is enormous. So it's especially when you're putting it away into a tax efficient account, such as a 401k or an IRA. So this is a story of our friend Phil and Joe. So what happens here is Joe comes right out of school. He and Phil come out of the same school, same year. Right away, Joe starts putting money away towards retirement. $5,000 per year, we assume an 8% rate of return. This is just for 10 years. Then he stops. Phil, like many of us do or have done, you come out, you know what, I'm earning some money, I want to have some fun, I want to go spend, and I'm just not ready to start putting money away. So he misses 10 years. After that, he says, okay, I better catch up. Things are starting to look important. I've got things coming on the horizon that are going to be important. I need to have money. I need to figure out how I'm going to retire. So for the next 40 years, he puts in $5,000 a year. Again, same rate of return, 8%. The shocking fact is Phil never catches up to Joe. Joe has an extra $300,000 in his retirement plan, which is about a 22% advantage. That's only after just starting first and staying in for 10 years. So take advantage of the retirement vehicles that you have at work, especially 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans, whatever you have. Much like what Andrew alluded to before with creating an emergency account, get to the point of where it's kind of painful and then back off from there. You don't want to impair yourself. Same idea with retirement, except you really want to maximize what you can put away. Now that may means you go back to your budget and say, if I increase this, something's got to give. You know, maybe I don't get the Starbucks every single day. The Starbucks effect is probably worth $4,000 a year to people. So your retirement assets are intended to protect your standard of living during retirement. There's other areas and ways to protect yourself that Andrew's going to talk about. Insurance.
Okay. So we talked earlier about having an emergency fund for the what ifs that happen in life. But the way I would describe insurance is it's very similar, but what it will cover are more of the catastrophic events that we hope never happen to anyone on this call or anyone we know in our lives. So, and again, when these things happen, they can take away from future savings, they can take away from your current lifestyle, and we want to make sure we protect for them. Now, in some people's cases, insurance might not be the right tool for everyone, but we think it's worth absolutely assessing whether it's right for your plan. So we'll start here on the left side here. So life insurance. So life insurance, many of you probably receive it through your employers. There's life insurance through your employer that you can receive, that if you were to leave your company, it might not come with you. Then there's also life insurance where you can own on your own. And there's many different types of life insurance. We're not going to go through all of them today, but it really protects in the event that someone is to pass away earlier in their life at any point, and the money that would have come into their family is no longer going to be there. That brings us to the next one, disability insurance. Many of you, again, have probably seen it in your benefits booklets. This is to protect the money that would come into someone's family if they were living and they couldn't do their job. So disability insurance allows for income continue to come into your family if you're unable to do your job. And like life insurance, you can own it through work, and you can also own it on your own. Health insurance. I think many times this is something we all need to have. That's something you get through your employer, and if you're not employed, you can get privately. But with health insurance, it's critical that you're looking at, if you have a partner, whatever it may be, you want to make sure you're figuring out, should you be on your insurance, their insurance, look at the different benefits. Human resources, I'll give a shout out to them, are working very hard for you to understand exactly what those benefits are and use those resources. Find out exactly what's offered to you and take advantage of those benefits. Make sure you understand if you're in a high deductible plan, low deductible plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then last but not least, long-term care. So this is for folks that are later on in their life, and the one example that we'll use is someone who might get Alzheimer's, someone who is unable to do 2 of 6 essential duties in their life. So they'll use this insurance to come into the family to allow to pay for things like healthcare, any healthcare costs, going to the doctor, medications. Many times this insurance is critical to make sure that you're not pulling away from your retirement funds when you're in retirement and you're using them for retirement. Again, I will just say it again, all of these insurances may not be right for everyone, but we think it's worth everyone considering these things and educating themselves on them. The other piece along the lines of protection and protecting your assets is estate planning. And Jeff is going to talk about that.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. So estate planning is not just for the very, very wealthy. I think that's a common misperception. At the very least, we're going to want to have a last will and testament. We also can have different structures of trust. These are just 2, revocable and an irrevocable trust. Now, without getting into the legal implications around tax efficiencies, et cetera, most important thing about what a trust does, it just gives you an extra layer of assurance that your assets will be disposed of the way you want them. You can be very specific as to who receives what assets and when. There's even clauses that get put into trusts, things called a spendthrift provision. So you might have, let's go back to Mike and Phil. Was it Mike? Well, let's call him Mike and Phil for the moment. Mike might be really dutiful, make sure he's always responsible with his money. He knows how to save, he knows how to invest. Phil's a little bit wild. The money tends to burn a hole in his pocket. He could be subject to a spendthrift provision, which gates how much money he's going to go through. Nobody necessarily likes that, but it's ultimately in their own good. Other tools. So this is just a small list, by the way. There's quite a bit we can talk about. We could have a webinar just on estate planning, and in fact, we do. Financial power of attorney that grants another person power over your assets and make financial decisions for you in the event of your impairment. A healthcare proxy is the medical side of that. So the proxy would be naming the person that has power to decide up to the point of whether there's a do not resuscitate order in or specific types of care. They have to be laid out. The healthcare proxy gets you part of the way there. An advance directive allows you to very specifically lay out the types of care that you want and expect. So the person that's the proxy could go look to that. Now, if it happens that the situation arises where one of the events that comes up is not in the directive, the healthcare proxy has the discretion to make a decision. So you be careful about who you pick. A durable power of attorney is much like a financial power of attorney, but whereas a regular power of attorney authority ends at the time of death of the client, durable power goes on and lays out other tasks, typically financial tasks and disposition of assets, property, etc. So one of the last pieces here is talking about healthcare planning. The reason that this is important and why it's called out separately, it kind of rolls against the insurance planning as well. The healthcare costs can really put a plan, a well-laid plan of retirement, it can derail it. They tend to have a disproportionate impact because medical expenses are going up an average of 6-7% a year. So in 10%, in 10 years, you've got about a doubling. So every 10 years, it would double. Medicare, which we rely on for most of us, only covers about half of your medical expenses. That's important to know. You have to plan for your Medicare premiums that are there. You have to evaluate if only 51% is covered. I have a gap. There's gap coverage available, and you are well suited to do yourself a favor and take a good look at gap coverage. Take a look at Medicare, the various parts and how they work and interplay. We're more than happy to talk to you about this offline because it is a fairly complex topic. The last piece is, in my opinion, one of the most important. Long-term care costs are for severe, debilitating illnesses or conditions that put you in potentially in nursing home care at the extreme, or home health care, where you're only capable of performing 4 out of the 6 activities of daily living, which are basic things like, like continence, mobility, transportation, ability to feed yourself. So these are serious conditions, and as much as healthcare in general has a disproportionate impact, the cost of 3 years in a nursing home when you're 80, so let's say 30 years from now, it will be in the millions of dollars over the 3 years. So even the most wealthy folks that have some good assets do not want to see those assets dissolve if in the event of a long-term care event. So this is something, again, that's fairly detailed and important, and we're more than happy to discuss this with you offline. And Andrew's going to take us to the close.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And I hope some of these topics I know are super exciting. I'm sure you're jacked up to go about your day. But really, these are things that you definitely should be talking about or thinking about, and we're happy to talk to you about them. And we hope that today we gave you a solid overview of those critical parts. And as I said at the beginning, you don't have to be reactive in all this. We're here for you. We can connect you with the right resources to make sure that you're being more proactive and making sure that you get yourself to a spot where you're feeling more excitement than stress when it comes to overall financial planning. And the last thing I just want to say, I've had a couple questions about the cash flow worksheet. So for those of you who didn't ask, if you expand your page, you should be able to see a drop down that says cash flow worksheet, and it's in Excel. For those of you who are getting on late, this is a budget. We did the first part for you on the budget. You have to go through and fill that out. But if you are still having problems seeing that cash flow worksheet, feel free to reach out to us and we can get that over to you. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today, and we look forward to talking with you soon and seeing you in the October webinar. Have a great day and be well.